Welcome to the High School Basketball Podcast. I'm with Ludlow head coach Cliff Zimmer. Welcome, Cliff.
Well, thanks for having me. This is awesome.
What does it take to build a winning program?
The big thing, I think, is patience. I think you really need to understand the community and the type of players that you get. It doesn't happen overnight, and it's going to take years. And it may not even happen while you're there. Like, you may put in all the building blocks, and then after you leave, it all comes together. So just kind of being involved as much as you can, top to bottom, from the high school level all the way down to biddy ball and the youth program. I'm entering my 7th year at Ludlow High School. And when I first started, I tried to take shortcuts and just start with just the high school kids and try to build a program from there. That quickly, I realized that wasn't going to work. And so we got more involved with the youth program and the travel and the rec, and it's made a huge difference. And so we have record numbers this year in the youth program with 130 kids. For any coaches out there looking like, all right, I got to change my program up a little bit, start there for sure, and then just understand that it's a marathon, definitely not a sprint.
This past season,
yeah,
you were 16-4, a tournament team. You had the best record in 26 years within the program.
Yeah.
That didn't start at the beginning of last year. It was a culmination of all of that hard work. Mm-hmm. What were some of the highlights of the season?
Oh, wow. We had a buzzer beater in there over Mount Everett. We certainly had some big wins. We had some grind them out wins down the stretch there. I like to be realistic with the guys and kind of put things in perspective, because historically we haven't had the best history, and so we were chasing something that was different for us. And so certainly down the stretch there, we were getting close to having one of the better records in program history, and I think it ended up being like the 3rd most wins in a single season in program history. And so we had just an incredible game against Duggan Academy over at their place, and they have a smaller gym, and their bleachers are only like 4 rows, and there's people along the baselines and stuff like this. It's senior night. We got balloons all over the place. They got the DJ going. So it was just an incredible atmosphere, and big shot after big shot going both ways. It wasn't our best game, but we kind of grinded out, and so that was certainly a memorable game. We played East Hampton in that first consolation games, or whatever you want to call them, and that was a great. It's probably the best game I've ever seen a Ludlow High School team play. We scored something like 25 points in the first quarter, and we won big time over them. What I really enjoy is those games you gotta grind through, and those games where you show up and it's just not your night, and you gotta find something that wins, and you really dig deep into your repertoire there, and like, I gotta find something. Sometimes you're just drawing on the board and see if maybe you can get 2 points here or get a turnover there, stuff like that. Those are the games I love.
Good teams are good teams. And you mentioned that you're
gonna get me going, Josh. You're gonna get me going.
You're challenged with your divisional situation.
Yeah.
Based on how your league is set up.
Yeah.
But like I said, good teams are good teams.
Yeah.
As you approach the season, as you approach especially the tournament against Norwood, and you have to travel,
mm-hmm.
How do you approach that?
It was just another great high school environment. Their cable access was there, so we got cameras all over the place, and they had reporters for the newspaper and radio, and it was just an awesome environment.
You lost, but there's a lot of takeaways from those types of situations. Those are building block situations for your program, to be in that environment.
Yeah.
To learn to travel,
Yep.
to learn to play against another premier team.
Mm-hmm.
You knew you could have been better. You were better during the season.
Mm-hmm. I think it's certainly a reminder of how far we've come, because we made the state tournament for the second year in a row, which is the first time we've ever done that in program history. It's a reminder of how much work it takes to get to the top. And so just when you feel like you're at the top of the mountain, you're not. And you have a lot of work to go. And if we could have snuck out a win, this one would have been great. But more so from the perspective of providing the athletes with that opportunity to travel again. It just builds more memories, experiences, that sort of thing. Big picture, talking about MIA basketball here in Mass. There's this antiquated system that we got going on right now where we got schools lined up based on population and school size, and that's kind of where you belong. And to your point, just because you're a big school doesn't mean you're good, and just because you're a small school doesn't mean that you're bad. Like last year, we lost to Hopkins Academy, who I would argue is probably one of the better teams we played all year, and they had some studs. They had this freshman who was probably the best player we played against, even including that Norwood game. Like he was,
Teddy Sear.
Yeah, Teddy, yes. Man, those guys were giving me headaches, and we just couldn't figure it out. And so, like, I would love for MIA just to change that formula, especially now when you got more schools kind of moving towards full-time athletic directors or part-time athletic directors. Less are doing teaching and running the athletic department. So if they could do that and teams kind of move up, move down, similar to how they do in Connecticut based on the previous year. And so for us, we won our the Tri-County North last year. We won our division. And so we should be moving up. We should be playing tougher competition. And if we get our butt whipped, then we move down for the following year and do that across the board. And I think we'd have some really cool matchups and just kind of the way things should be. So hopefully this reaches my friends out there in Franklin, Mass, and we can make that change happen. That'd be awesome.
Your ability to build a program from the ground up is really the basis point for possibly long-term success for your program, and that's how you've approached it.
Yeah, I try to get out there as much as we can, and try to get the boys involved in as many community events as we can. And last year we helped the police department out with Thanksgiving food drive. Last couple years we've done the wreaths across America, and so we go lay down wreaths at the cemetery there in town. We did Toys for Tots. We've done Coaches versus Cancer. We've done youth nights for our home games, or the youth get in free as long as they wear their basketball jerseys. We get out there and do the evaluations and the tryouts for the younger kids. We try to get out as many games as we can. And, coaches clinics. We've had the 7th, 8th grade come in. And so it's really about building those connections with those younger parents coming up. And so when they do reach high school, I'm a familiar face. They know my JV coach, Coach D'Agostino, and our freshman coach, Coach Gonzalez, and they know some of the players. So the more we can do that, the more we can be out in the community. I think it just kind of sets us up for success and really kind of builds that excitement that we have going in town. And
you're building young men.
Yeah.
You're building community.
Yeah. And
you're building a successful program. And you're really a bigger presence than you might be otherwise.
Absolutely. And to kind of to that point, we've really ramped up our off-season programs. And so we've even had incoming 8th graders. So they were just finished their 7th year, going into 8th grade, join us for the summer and the fall. Because like when you're in 8th grade, especially on the boys' side, you think you're the man. You know, I'm the best looking, I'm the smartest, I'm the best athlete, I'm the funniest, whatever. And then you get to high school and it's a rude awakening. You think you're good, until you get out there. And similar to that Norwood game, like we thought we were good, and then you get out there and it's like, ooh, no, there's some better teams, there's some better players. We've worked really hard on our culture and kind of what we're about, and so the sooner we can introduce them to that, the less introducing and that sort of stuff we have to do at the high school level. They already know how it's going to be. And so that's one of the main focuses this year is we've identified our core values as a program. And so we're really trying to institute that.
What are the core values? What is your culture?
We identified hard work as one of our values, commitment, enthusiasm, and trust as our 4 core values. And so that's something that we're going to preach every practice, and that's something we're going to preach every game. With the idea is that if we excel in those 4 areas, more times than not, we're going to be in most games. And so if we work harder than the other team, the thought is at the end of the game, we'll be there. If we're committed throughout practice and we do every drill to our best of our ability, that's going to pay off in the game. If we bring that enthusiasm and that passion in practice in the game, same thing, we'll be there at the end. And then if we trust that the guy next to me is going to do his job to the best of his ability, and I'm not going to try to do everything, then we'll be okay in the end. Big picture, how I approach this is that our main responsibility is to educate these young men to be the best versions of themselves moving forward. What it's really about is sports and athletics in general being an extension of the classroom. And so that's how we approach it. We're going to have successes on the basketball court, and that's great, and we're going to have failures. Let's learn from those failures and see how we can apply it to life, for sure.
I'm sure there's a lot of conversations that you're having throughout the season, both within the team and with individuals, in terms of maybe their roles, in terms of the expectation, in terms of team play. How do you approach those conversations with your players?
Yeah, for any new coaches that are hopefully listening to this podcast, it is a skill and it takes time. It's uncomfortable, it's scary, but also that's life, right? We're going to have those difficult conversations with a spouse, parent, employer, whatever. And so over time, what I've found is the more upfront and honest you can be with players, the team, parents, athletic director, principal, boosters, the better off that you can be. The more upfront and honest you can be with people about this is the vision, this is the mission, this is where we're going, the more people can decide, I want to buy into that, or it's not for me. And so what I've found is the more upfront I've been with it, they see it, I want to buy in. Not only that, I'm excited about where this is going. Tell me what I can do, tell me how I can help.
I think it's important to differentiate yourself. You've clearly differentiated yourself with your program already. You're doing things that others are not. And by the way, you're winning.
That's a nice byproduct.
Well, you're winning in multiple ways. You're winning on multiple levels, which is really exciting.
Yeah.
What is your philosophy as a coach?
The days of the Bobby Knights, those days are gone. Tom Izzo, a few years back, remember he had that game. I think it may have been a home game. He got up in the player's face and undressed him, basically verbally in front of everybody else. And the player came out afterwards and said, "No, he's coaching me hard, and I love it," and that sort of thing. That's not really my style. At the end of the day, these are young men. They're still kids. So I would never want to embarrass one of them in the game. However, in practice is where things get hard. Nobody is going out there trying to help us lose. No one's going out there trying to make mistakes on purpose. And so when these young men come off the court and they're feeling down or they feel like they've made a mistake, I would try to remind them that, listen, like, we're not out here trying to lose on purpose, and mistakes happen, such as life. But the important thing is how do we bounce back, and what did we learn from it? Hopefully between all of us we can figure out a way to get a point, get a steal, get a win. And so I try to give players that freedom, and the assistant coaches that freedom to kind of have their input. Try to stay even keel. So I found that in more games than not, I was more of a cheerleader, an instigator type of coach than anything else. Which going into this year, I'm hoping it's not the case. I'm hoping my players kind of take that over for us. And then finally, I stress to everybody that everything's earned, and it's not given.
There's some continuity throughout your program, and you talked about accountability. You're going to give players an opportunity. What do those opportunities look like based on being a senior versus being an underclassman, and what are the responsibilities as you see it?
A player's role may change from game to game. Especially this year, we got senior Stephen Goodrow coming back, a big man for us, who's working really hard to be in tip-top shape and be the best version of himself when he comes back. If Stephen's on point, he's going to score most of our points, most of our rebounds. But outside of that, we don't have right now that go-to guy. And so it's really going to take everybody, and it's going to change from game to game. There might be a guy that's hot. I'm not sure we really appreciated Kobe as much as we should have. And so in passing, a lot of Kobe Bryant's videos and words of wisdom have come out. And one of the interviews that's resurfaced recently is how he was saying his first year in the NBA, he was not very good. And he said his inner circle was on him, like, aren't you mad? You're not playing. It's like, dude, I'm 18, and I'm not as good as the guys that are playing in front of me. But he's like, I use that as motivation to get in the gym and get better and get better. And, now he's a Hall of Famer and looked at as one of the best players of all time. And so that same idea, that same concept applies to us and at the high school level. If you don't like where you're at and what your role is, do something about it.
I'm assuming that throughout the season, you're going to go with whatever five is giving you the best look.
Yeah, sure.
Which creates opportunities for a lot of players on the team.
Yeah.
My assumption is that there's some buy-in because of that, because they know that if I do X, Y may happen.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the case in your program?
Yeah, I mean, last year we were pretty fortunate. I think I got every player in every game, which isn't normal for most varsity sports. This year, I think we're probably 6 to 8 guys in most games, so that's going to be different. This is kind of what your role looks like. Whether that changes for better or for worse, in your case, is up to you.
What's the atmosphere or the expectation of the atmosphere this year in your gym?
Our gym is awesome. Mullins Gymnasium over there at Ludlow High School is great. Right now, it's the hottest ticket going right now in Ludlow, and so we get an amazing crowd showing up. Man, the parents bring the energy. They are rowdy, and they just win or lose. They love their Lions, and we get a DJ for the home games, and that adds to the atmosphere. And all the kids have their warm-up jerseys on, so it's just like this nice, crisp look.
You're going to be playing with a packed gym,
Mm-hmm.
crazy fans,
Mm-hmm.
in really great games. You're playing in a league that has some pretty good teams.
Oh, yeah.
My assumption is your out-of-league schedule is going to be tough because you don't back down from tough schedules. In that environment, in that timeout, bring us into a couple of timeout scenarios.
Each timeout, I feel like, is unique in itself. Last year, I actually didn't like calling timeouts, and we had an experienced team, so I would let them play through a lot of situations, and then just figure it out, learn for yourselves. When I've had enough and said, this is falling off the tracks here, I'll call timeout. So I remember one game I had to call a timeout and let the guys know, listen, you guys are gonna let this slip out of your hands. You guys are flat. We don't have our hands up on defense. Nobody's talking. There's zero energy. And they're like, oh, yeah, okay. And we go back out there. Their run for their team continues. Here comes another timeout. I said, you guys are looking at me like I was crazy or something, like I was just joking around, but here we are. I think at that point it was like a 4 or 6 point game. And, we're back in it. All right, out of this timeout, let's run this set, let's run this play. Sometimes it's just kind of like a heart-to-heart. When I speak about last year's team, a lot of times it was motivation just to try to keep us on track. I would imagine I'm not going home with any timeouts this year. We try to mix up the schedule. Quite honestly, I think all teams should shoot for a 500 record. That means you were challenged in half and, maybe not challenged in half. If you go 20-0, chances are either you're really good or you played a weak schedule. We're playing Westerly High School from Rhode Island this year, so we're excited about that. We got them coming to town. We got Frontier High School, which we're really excited about.
A lot of coaches steal different things from each other. There are no secrets anymore in this game, right? That it's just who does it better, who executes it better. Mm-hmm. Where do you grab your different approaches to the game?
Ludlow is a blue-collar mentality community. People grow up in Ludlow. They go to school in Ludlow. They may go away to school, but most of them come back. Most of them raise their own family. And there's a couple of different generations that are in our program right now that their parents have gone to Ludlow High School. I'm like, we really need to feed into this blue-collar mentality. And so that's when you start looking at your presses, your traps, just your tough defense. What I do have is a bunch of athletes, guys that can just run for days and are willing to work hard. And so what we try to do is fast break. And so now we're trying to teach these kids decision-making and structure within the fast break. I really love where the game is going, especially on the European side, with the 5-out and a lot of different unique, innovative stuff that they're doing over there that is working its way over here. Take out the positions because it's really becoming a positionless sport. And so even when we're selecting our guys now that we know what we're doing, we kind of select them kind of with a 5-out, half-court mentality, just guys that are good ball players will find a spot for you. For coaches out there, I think it's really being honest with yourself and having an understanding of kind of where your guys are at.
You really have that blue-collar philosophy, which is that hard work, philosophical approach, and that's helped also build your program. How do you include some of your alumni into the program?
Ultimately, what I would love is at some point to have one of our former players involved, at least with all the travel teams, both Suburban and CYO, in a coaching capacity. We've had them involved in the off-season, coaching like some of our summer league teams and stuff like that.
What keeps you coming back every year? 7th year, you're a JV coach, you worked your way up. Yeah. You obviously love the game. Yeah. Why coach high school basketball? Why continue that?
I love being around the kids. I love having an impact on them. And so one of my players last year, I just couldn't kick him out of the gym. I was rebounding for him and he was shooting. And we were just talking, and I started talking to him about, now his freshman year and what his plans were. And he's like, Coach, I really don't know. To be able to be a part of that conversation, give him the space where he feels comfortable having that conversation with me, that's why I come back. Being there for those young men in those moments. I feel like that's where I can have an impact.
You've really built an unbelievable program, a successful program, regardless of wins or losses. I think that's the main takeaway here for you within your program, is that you've built a successful program top to bottom, holistically, grassroots, community, involvement, teaching. All of those aspects have really catapulted Ludlow basketball, and that 16-4 record and that second tournament appearance and the best record in 26 years is really a culmination of all of that work. You're going to continue that work regardless of wins and losses, which is going to create lasting success for your program and buy-in and involvement.
Right.
What's next for Ludlow basketball? What's the next step?
Well, the first thing I would say is that it's not my program, and so I'm very deliberate when I talk about what we have there. Is because it's ours, it's we, and so I find that words are very, very powerful for one way or another, and so I try to make it a point that this is our program. Everybody has investment in it, whether you're working the concession stand, whether you're one of the cheerleaders, whether you're doing the scorebook, whether you're one of our main scorers. So everyone's got a part in it, and I try to convey that to players, whether you're on freshman, whether you're on varsity, whether you're in sixth grade or biddy ball. You're part of the family. And that same thing goes for the parents. And so if you feel like you can contribute to add in a positive experience for these young men, by all means. And so for us, like, the journey continues. And again, going back to Kobe Bryant, he talks about how he would chase perfection knowing that he could never achieve it. And so he goes out and practices in games trying to be perfect, knowing that he's chasing something that's never going to happen. And so the same idea, I feel like, applies to our program, is what we're chasing, it never changes. Like, we're just going to be the best version of ourselves. Coach Stevens was still coaching the Celtics. I tell my guys this all the time. One of the great things that he said is, winning is hard. Losing is easy. It's easy to not run back on defense, right? It's easy to not box out. It's easy to not communicate. It's hard to sacrifice your own personal goals for the team. It's hard to sprint back on defense. Hard to take a charge, And so that's kind of where we're at. Is it's going to be hard work, and there's so many different factors that go into winning a game.
You have great pride in your program. Heck, you're even drinking out of a Ludlow coffee mug.
I love my Lions, that's for sure, yeah.
I think that's tremendous. We appreciate you coming on this program, sharing your great insights. Wish you tremendous success this year, now and in the future. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you. But Coach, I got to say, before I let you go, I've watched your previous podcasts, and I've seen the guys that you've had on, and it's clear that we don't have somebody that is in charge of your wardrobe. I think that needs some work, and so I called in some favors, and we got something for you for having us on. Let me brag about our great program in Ludlow.
Love it.
And then hopefully this kind of spruces up your attire kind of moving forward. So
I love it.
I do want to share this with
you. Thank you very much. I will.
Look at that. And hopefully we wear that with pride.
I will absolutely wear it with pride, because you represent all the great things about high school basketball. That's the reason that we're doing this, because of coaches like you, programs like you. You will absolutely see me with that shirt on,
awesome.
for sure.
I love
Thank
it.
you very
Thanks,
much.
Coach. I appreciate it.